about you? You're very, very welcome. And as always, my thanks to my Patreon friends, my little gaggle of Patreon friends, with a new member, Daniel, just joined. Thank you, Daniel, and thank you for your support. Now, this week we discovered that it cost £2,460 to repair damage done to the mayoral portrait of former DUP Belfast Lord Mayor Lord Brown. Who is Lord Brown, I hear you say? Who knows? But his impressive portrait once again hangs on the walls of City Hall following an act of vandalism. Now, the vandalism was perpetrated by a Sinn Féin employee and is being investigated by the PSNI as a hate crime. Rest assured, no such damage will reoccur, as the council has now installed a security camera to watch the portrait. Now, wannabe Tory boy, DUP councillor Dean McCullough, has serious questions seemingly around the issue. He said, "When you talk about cost, there is a huge cost here to public confidence, and serious questions remain unanswered." Seriously, Dean? Seriously, son? Seriously? You think the public give one flying about the portrait of somebody nobody even remembers? And I'm not saying, oh Lord, he's probably a lovely man. Probably, I hope he's still there. A nice man. But seriously, here's my question. Why do we continue to waste ratepayers' money on pandering to the egos of local politicians? And we're not talking about small sums of money here. We're talking about substantial sums of money. Over 10 years, just 10 years, Belfast City Council, wait for it, spent £150,000 on these vanity projects. And it isn't just the DUP. Every party, except, of course, People Before Profit, because I don't think they've had a Lord Mayor. Well, all the rest of them, they've all bought into this disgraceful waste of public money. Even the Shinners, you thought the Shinners would have come in with a new broom and brushed all that old tradition out. Oh, no, the Shinners love it as much as anybody else. Them, Alliance, the SDLP, they've all ignored the obscenity of these gratuitous acts of self-aggrandizement, paid for, of course, from the public purse. The only exception was Michael Long of Alliance, who opted for a photo. Then again, he was only in office for a couple of weeks, covering for his colleague, Kate Nicholl. Now, Kate made up for his frugality by having a portrait, of course, painted of herself. Like, what's wrong with a photograph? Like, if the British Museum has photographs, what? Seriously. Not the shortness of time, by the way, in office is anything to go by, because not if you're going by Sinn Féin's Lord Mayor John Finucane, who, even though he only spent 6 months as Lord Mayor, still felt entitled to have his £15,000 portrait up on the walls. Now, I have to get the other side, I have to be fair. Ulster Unionist councillor
Jimmy Rogers, you know Jimmy Rogers, a man crippled by terminal congestion and constipation.
Well, he argued for the portrait staying, saying that
it's amazing the feedback they get, not just from people in Belfast and Northern Ireland, but especially the tourists.
Indeed, yeah. I can just imagine tourists disembarking from their cruise ships and being offered tours of, say, Giant's Causeway, Heritage Site, or the Titanic, and rejecting both, going, no, we have come here to see the portrait gallery of Belfast City Hall with paintings of minor local politicians. That's why I've travelled halfway across the world anyway.
Bullshit!
If Belfast First citizens want a pictorial reminder of their year in office, let them put their hands in their own pockets and pay for them. Better still, just paint one yourselves, will ye? Just paint it yourself. Now, the case, which of course kicked off this rant, namely the vandalism of Lord Brown's portrait, we are now left in the ludicrous and somewhat surreal position of having to pay for security cameras to watch a portrait nobody, and I do mean nobody, gives one shite about. Only in Northern Ireland. Staying in the realm of surreal politics, Ian the Pain Paisley, he's back in work. Well, if you call being the director of a company work, it's not exactly digging turf or picking pretties. No, Ian is now a director of a company called Galgorm Castle Education and Preservation Limited. I think that's it. Which is described as having been focused on the operation of historical sites and buildings and similar visitor attractions. Oh, well, there you go. That's clear enough, isn't it? That's clear. I think that's clear. What? We can be sure of one thing. This new company is destined for greatness, with Ian at the helm. After all, This is the same man who was suspended from the Commons for 30 days following the revelation he had taken 2 family holidays paid for by the Sri Lankan government in 2018, which he had somehow absent-mindedly failed to inform Parliament about. He then faced the humiliation of having to make a tearful and sorry apology to the Commons just before managing to survive a recall vote by 444, get in by the skin of his teeth. Only to subsequently have the same constituents boot him out at the last election. But now, with Thane as director, I'm certain this new company will be an amazing success. I mean, it's bound to be, it's going to be the next Apple, Google, or Tesla. In fact, you should all buy some shares. Get in there quick. I know, I'm getting on to my broker here. John. Yeah, Ian's company, buy. Everything, buy. The shirt. I mean, it's like, what? What could possibly go wrong? And if people thought Ian would quietly leave the public stage, well, that hope was resoundingly trashed, as along with most of the high and the mighty, Ian popped up in Washington for this year's St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Now, when interviewed about Trump's threat of a 200% tariff on food here, Ian had this to say.
Yes, if tariffs at 200% came into Irish foods, that would be absolutely drastic for the Irish Republic market here in America. I mean, I was speaking to one company that does $1 billion worth of trade a year in their food product, and of course that would stifle them. But Northern Ireland, being part of the United Kingdom on this basis, actually sees an opportunity. Now, do we want to take an opportunity off the back of the Republic of Ireland?
Do we want to take an opportunity off the back of the Republic of Ireland? You can see his eyes. Couldn't you see it in his eyes? He wanted to go, fucking but he didn't. Fair play to him. Controlled himself. He was further pressed on how the 200% tariff would impact Bushmill whiskey in Antrim, which should be in his constituency. And Ian had this beautiful explanation.
And I hope they do indeed. I was on with Bushmills. I've been making representations to them, and I've been speaking about that very subject, because the luxury product of whiskey in Northern Ireland, and I call it Irish whiskey made in the UK, has a very unique selling point. Irish
whiskey made in the UK. Classic Ian stuff, that, isn't it? Classic Ian stuff. But you may wonder, indeed you may question, why was he there in the first place, considering he's no longer an elected representative? Well, Ian justified his presence with this explanation.
So you're not on the front line as a politician anymore, but you haven't left the stage because you're still enjoying the company of politicians and a big night like this here in Washington.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm in private business now. There's very important connections. I have a very, very good connection on the probably the best black book in Northern Ireland, and I'm engaged in that, and I'm finding it very, very enjoyable.
So you're happy?
Oh, I'm always be content in all things, and I'm content in all things, always have been.
Yes, there you have it. Ian is the best wee black book in the country, and I will bet you money that black book originally belonged to his late father, as there is no way Ian would have been able to get any phone numbers on his own account. But that Ian sees absolutely no issue in monetising the contacts made as a public representative speaks volumes to his character. I'm certain that the hundreds made redundant in Ballymena during his tenure will be relieved to learn that their misfortune hasn't gone completely to waste, as their ex-MP is walking over their heads on his road to personal riches. But it would be unfair. I have to point out that most politicians have done exactly the same as Ian when moving from the public to private sphere. But unlike Dopey Ian, at least they had the wit not to boast about it. The decision by both Sinn Féin and the SDLP to boycott this year's White House St. Patrick's Day celebrations due to Trump's attitude to the Gazan invasion, well, that had absolutely no effect, as the ignoramus hadn't even been informed of their absence. Not that the side went unrepresented, with what looked like a plane load of unionist politicians and various hangers-on turning up for the yearly jolly. There was even a short promo video featuring the Deputy First Minister doing, for what I thought looked all the world like a photo shoot for an upcoming edition of the Ulster Tatler. serious. I ask you, what in the name of the holy are most of these people doing there? But even more importantly, who paid for their travel and accommodation? I will make an educated guess that not all of them, but most of them had it paid for from the public purse, which is a euphemism for our purses. It appeared that along with every Tom, Dick and Harry, there was even room for an Edwin. Yes, Assembly Speaker Edwin Poots front and centre. Why? Like, what high-level negotiations was he involved in? Oh, yes, I drive a Massey Ferguson tractor myself, but I'd be interested in an American one. I like your big tractors. I'd love to have only got a wee form, but I would buy a big tractor if you'd be interested in sending me over a brochure. Like, I can understand, right, the reason for the leaders of the main political parties to be in attendance. But as for the rest, give me a break. And if they want a trip to Washington, then let them pay for it themselves. It did appear appropriate, however, that the Taoiseach handed over a bowl of weeds to the Donald as it's telling that he's the one president of the United States that Ireland has not claimed as one of their own. Like, here's a picture of 23 past presidents who we have claimed originated from the old sod. We even had the temerity to claim Obama as one of our own, for Christ's sake. But Trump, no, nothing to do with us, regarding him. Pontius Pilate, no, nothing to do with us, we take no responsibility for him. That's no Irish in him, that's the Scots. The Scots are to blame for him, not us. We don't know him, never heard of him. Personally, I hate all the plastic Paddy bullshit, which goes along with St. Patrick's Day in America. I have personal experience of what it's like being in New York over St. Patrick's Week. As a teenager, I won an all-expenses trip after coming first in a debating competition sponsored by the Bank of Ireland, proving it isn't only politicians who can blag a free trip to the States. Now, much of our time was very constructively spent in Irish bars, where I witnessed at first hand the gullibility of Irish Americans. The pubs were full of Walter Middies from back home, blagging free drinks from wide-eyed Americans as they told about their stories fighting for Irish freedom. I see that, love. See that there? Well, I was going away from an operation, right? And the Brits spotted me on top of the flats and they shot at me. And the bullshit ricocheted off the thing and hit me there. Look, there's a scar, love. There's a scar. And she went, that looks like an appendicitis scar. Oh, yes, love, it does indeed. Does indeed. That's camouflage, you see. One of our own. Large brandy, thanks very much, love. Yes, very traumatic. Large brandy, thanks very much. Slán, yes, one of our own surgeons done that, love. We've got our own surgeons and everything. Just to camouflage it, because otherwise they'd scoop me, they'd take me in, you know. Oh, I was desperate. Desperate. I even happen to know a few of them. And the closest they'd ever come to a sniper is watching a war movie on the telly. I'm so pissed off that I become... that I was in a pub one night and I just spoke a wee bit louder than normal. And I said, oh, you know, my own great-great-great-grandfather was hung by the British. Ho! There was a gaggle of Irish Americans around me in a second. It's a large brandy, please. Large brandy. Traumatized.
Tell us more. What happened, my God? Mervyn, his father, great-great-great-grandmother was hung by the British. What happened? It must be terrible.
Oh, aye, still a trauma in our family. Large brandy, Slán. No, still a trauma. I know what it's like when they're still telling the story of the morning they came and dragged out great-great-great-grandfather Padraig and strung him up like a rat. Then one of the Americans in a quiet voice went, was he a freedom fighter? I said, no, actually, he was a sheep shagger. What can you do? Still a tragedy. What can you do?
You going into the parade tomorrow?
I wouldn't be, you know what, I'll stay in the back garden with me dog. I think it's the greatest load of pants and wants. All the Americans are over here. Oh my God, I love this, I love Ireland. They doing my I'm telling you, I hate it.
After all that, finally a tip for a bit of decent television. In the form of a recent BBC Northern Ireland Spotlight documentary called Those Who Want Me Dead. It's a two-parter, and it's about the life of top IRA man Brenton Hughes. No, not the dark, not the Belfast Brenton Hughes. This is a guy from County Tyrone, I think, who during the early 70s became one of the most successful IRA bank robbers in the country. On top of that, he was a bit of a mastermind, this child. He masterminded an escape from Portlaoise prison, taking out 3 top Republicans using a helicopter, would you believe? Helicopter! Well, James Bond would be proud of this shit. Paradoxically, Mr. Hughes ended up spending most of his adult life incarcerated in the very same prison he got your man out of, for having fallen foul of the IRA following a private bank robbery for his own profit. Everybody was after him. He memorably came off of this. He said that the IUC, the British Army, the Irish Army, and the IRA were all after me. You can't get more wanted than that. That's a cracking line. That's a cracking line. I love that line. Now, Hughes comes across as both an intelligent and interesting character who, by his own admission, now believes he wasted his life and argues that violence served no purpose. Definitely one to watch. Interesting wee viewing. I quite liked it. I thought it was very good.
You'll do nothing. You hear me? You'll do nothing.